Welcome to the 35th day of the government shutdown, Political Matrix News. Where is the 34 days? How
It's
y'all doing
actually
tonight?
36 days because there were 31.
36.
Well, yeah, there were 31 days in October, and today is
That's
November
right.
5th. So 31 plus 5. I could do that math in my head.
Wait
This
a
is
second.
now
I
a
can't.
record. It's a record shutdown.
I can't do that math. I'm a Democrat. Wait a second. No, I'm not. It's just so sad that they are dying on this hill, snap and everything. I mean, Scott and I were both wrong. We thought they were gonna give up by now.
You know what? But Senator Kennedy said something that made me recalculate that, because I failed to take into consideration that there was an election today, and there's no way in hell they were going to quit that shutdown before the election. I'm not going to say I'm not saying they're going to do it tomorrow, but they certainly would not have let it go before the election. I think they probably will coast at least for 3 or 4 more days.
Oh, I think I'll probably next week sometime.
Well,
I know at the end of last week's program, we kind of did a little roundtable estimate of, okay, when's this shutdown going to end? And two of us said that it was going to end long before today, and one of us said it would go beyond today. Who was it that said it would go beyond today?
Well, you said it would go beyond today.
Oh, I said that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
hey, that's right.
But
you're right.
But you just did it one day past mine, so you kind of
exactly.
cheated.
I don't remember that being the prediction. I just remember saying it was going to go and it was going to be a record, and today, of course, set the record. So
in fact, you prefaced it by saying, "I'm going to do this Price is
Right
style."
That's right, Price is Right style.
Exactly.
I remember that. One day,
I think it might go all the way to
that is what I said. Yes,
I think it might make it all the way to December 1st and after Thanksgiving.
No.
Yeah,
oh Lord, I don't know if they'll go that far, because they are truly running out of runway, because like I said from the beginning, fundraising is driving this thing, and fundraising and campaign fundraising is the biggest dog out there. They don't have an election to try to raise money for right now, so they have got to get off the pot.
Right. Well, we'll see. I mean, I thought the SNAP benefit thing, I mean, although the judge is coming with some sort of mandate that they give a partial benefit and everything else, but they don't realize that. I mean, USDA and Congress is in charge of all the SNAP money, not the executive branch. It's not
credible
their
polling.
area.
Credible polling that's not like polling adults, it's actually polling like likely voters, is starting to blame the Democrats more than the Republicans.
Well, yeah, but
I still think it's hilarious when they trot out these polls of 1,800 adults.
Yes.
And now you can't even truly trust the likely voter polls, because they let people self-report that they're voters,
exactly.
that they're even registered, and that they're likely to vote.
And I think after what we saw yesterday with all the likely voters, I think that a lot of these likely voters are not really legal likely voters. Also, probably what we saw yesterday, because we've been talking about this voter fraud issue now for like the last year. And I doubt those blue states did anything to rectify any of the problems that, we're talking about. We're talking about here in Florida, where it's a gold standard of elections, and there's problems here. Imagine the silver standard and the bronze standard and the runner-up standard and all the other
and the
states
brown standard.
Exactly. The people who don't give a damn about fixing any of the problems, because it doesn't justify their argument.
Well, the USDA secretary, I think you and I talked about this the other day. And actually, I think you're the one that sent me this video. She said that that they were not. What was it, Greg? I think actually
they're trying to get the data. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
They're trying to get the data of all the different people who are on SNAP benefits and whether or not they're illegal or not. And this actually parlays exactly into elections. And so the red states had no trouble at all giving their data up to the USDA. The blue states immediately. The blue states did not want to give the data at all. In fact, they were suing them to keep their data private. Now, if their data is going to be private with SNAP benefits, I'm sure it's going to be private with the voter rolls as well. These guys are living by fraud and money laundering and scheming the system. And they're doing it at every single level, the election level, the SNAP level, the Medicaid level, the housing level, every single thing they can do to go ahead and scrape more money out of the government for people who do not deserve it, or even are most likely even real people. I mean, that's what they're doing. I mean, it's pure fraud, and they're endorsing it and living by it, and it's just sad.
Well, I'm not going to dispute anything that you just said because you're right. However, and I'm not saying you claimed this, but I am going to say, however, election fraud had nothing to do with yesterday's Republican
Oh
bloodbath.
no, no.
No,
That
Republicans
was
sat on their
legitimate
butts.
tosses that the
Yeah,
Democrats swept it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I'm even remotely surprised about is the AG race in Virginia. I thought there
I
was a
am.
chance that he would lose based on him being proven to have said, "Oh yeah, I wish my opponent was dead, and I'd love to see his kids die too." I mean,
Yeah, that's
it's amazing
bizarre.
you can
That
say that, and the Democrat base will still come out and vote for you.
Well, it's bizarre that he said that, and the Republicans did not come out. That's what's even more bizarre is that the stuff that he said showed ginned up the Republican base that voted for Youngkin to go ahead and come out and get him out and not elected, but that did not happen.
Well, there's an easy way to figure this out, to figure out just the actual um, uh, veracity of these elections. And we just got to get someone to fund it. And that's to do confirmation polling, where you
Right.
go to the division of elections, find the people that actually voted in the election, and then you go back and ask them how do they vote with a couple of control questions that they're also voting questions, and
Yeah.
then you can compare how those results and the end results wound up,
Yeah, because
because
yesterday was a
they
bad
should be
day.
reasonably close.
Well, they should be if somebody like us is doing the poll because the other
Well, yeah,
pollsters were way off yesterday. Way off. They had Mandani winning by 20 or 25 points. They had the race in New Jersey within 3 or 4 points. They had, the only thing they were similarly close on was a Virginia race, saying that the Republicans were going to lose in the governor's race by double digits. But they were way off in the majority of the polls. In fact, there's some polling done in Orlando and their city council races down there. The polling was way off. I mean, it was a historical trend where I don't know if they're just doing, like you said, adults and not likely voters, or the fact that the new likely voter is not a real likely voter anymore because it's
no,
not a
no,
real vote. I have no idea
it's
what their methodology is.
no, I'm telling you that, especially in these polls that are published in the media. I mean, you know as well as I do that the real research. We're the only people, I think, us and maybe a couple of other, like Trafalgar and a couple of other
Or
guys, are the
Rasmussen,
only
yeah,
ones that actually, publish real data.
right,
Most of the other ones have their clients tell them what the poll needs to read, and that's what they publish. Now, for internal data, they'll give them the real deal.
yeah. We lost a lot of
But for
clients like
me,
that,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We have lost a lot of clients that wanted us to publish stuff that we knew wasn't true, and we just
right,
wouldn't do it. And but so that's how we know this is a very common practice, because they were shocked when we wouldn't do it.
right.
But
It's like,
but they just when you have like people allowing people to self-identify as likely voters, frankly, to
yeah,
self-identify as voters at all, then how can your poll have any credibility? People will
right,
absolutely lie about things that make them look bad. If it's going to make them look bad, like, oh well, of course I'm going to vote. Well, you're supposed to vote. That's kind of like a civic duty. You're supposed to do that.
exactly.
Well, if some random person calls you and they got no way of verifying what you say, are you going to tell them the truth if they ask you an embarrassing question? Eh,
What about that
probably
time
not.
that we remember that time you and I asked them about how many times they voted, and these people were. I mean, we went ahead and called the entire list. We didn't do the likely voter list because we always wanted to see who was telling the truth on the first question. And so we have people with a voting score of like 25% or 30% say we don't never miss an election. We vote every
Mm-hmm.
time. And then
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who vote all the time, they actually said, "Oh, I might have missed an election here or there." And they actually had 100% record. So I mean, sometimes people don't want to be too overactive in the apparatus, which is weird. But a lot of people who are underachieving want to be the overachievers anytime you ask them. That
Well,
happens almost all the time.
campaignsandelections.com called 8,000 people, registered voters, and asked them about their voting records. You know who the only people that told the truth about their record was? The people who actually were 100% voters.
Yeah.
But that's only because everyone said that they were 100% voters. So I mean, yeah, they're telling the truth, but I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, it's not a demonstration of their honesty; it's a demonstration of what they're saying aligns with reality. But that's not always the fact.
exactly. And so, I mean, and so I see a lot of the fallacies like that most likely probably in place here with the polling. Wish you got another big black eye yesterday with the results. And
We didn't because we didn't
we
pose any
didn't,
polls
yeah,
like that.
no, we didn't. And actually, it's just pathetic on how bad the pollsters are.
Mhm.
And they got to
Yeah,
step it
there's
up.
only a handful. There's only a handful of guys you can trust, and I only say that because I haven't found them doing anything that I thought was sketchy. But like Trafalgar and Rasmussen,
I think
and
John McLaughlin,
yeah, like there's not they're not, and those aren't the only ones, but those are just the first ones that spring to mind.
and Dick Morris is still actually doing some pretty good, accurate
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
surveys.
I'm
But but their cost
co-hosting for him.
is, yeah,
Oh
their
yeah,
cost is much higher. I mean, you can spend 5,000 with us and get the same data for 30,000 with them, or you can pay us 30,000. We'll take it too. It'd be great. A little commercial here for the political matrix and the listener group. But no, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see with the 2026 cycle because a lot of people were saying about Casey DeSantis here in Florida about she was going to be the lieutenant governor, probably for Jay Collins. But the way she's acting right now, it sounds like she's probably running for governor herself. It's going to be Jay Who, because she just did a big announcement at a school yesterday talking about all the money that Florida has saved, and it's going to be $30 million for the next 5 years. It's interesting she picked 5 years for the announcement because, of course, that would be the rest of this year and the entire next 4 year term. And so, I mean, it's pretty ironic how she's placing everything in manners to where it looks like she's going to be the heir apparent for her husband.
well,
And she's
not
ahead
if
of the
you
polls also.
not if you walk around Tallahassee for any amount of time, because
Well,
I can
she's
tell
ahead
you
in the
that
polls.
yeah, well, the chit chat that I overheard today and participated in some cases, yeah, was a very different message, and frankly, one that aligns with what I'm predicting is that I don't care how qualified Casey actually is, like what her internal qualifications are. People don't like electing dynasties like this. They just don't. There's only a handful of times when it worked, and usually that is almost always a sympathy vote because their spouse died and they just got put up to be the replacement candidate. But
Right. Well, Mike,
Yeah.
that's
And
not
as
this case.
pollsters, you know that name recognition matters and everybody recognizes her name, last name anyway.
yeah.
So I don't put any faith in those polls.
No, I wouldn't.
Meaningless at this.
Exactly.
But what's your personal opinion, Mike? I know you're a DeSantis fan. You're probably one of the bigger ones here, between the three of us, among the three of us.
Well, I mean, if it was up to me, Ron DeSantis would be allowed to run again, but he's not. So I still, to this day, love Ron DeSantis. I know you guys don't, but I do. I think he's done an outstanding job. Now, he doesn't get an A+. Look, nobody's perfect. Well, except my
Right.
wife. Okay, there's one perfect human.
She
My
is.
wife
She's
doesn't
pretty
do
cool.
anything wrong. But other than her, everybody makes some kind of mistake, right? So
Right.
Ron DeSantis hasn't been 100%, but he's certainly been 95 in my book, and that's an A. And I love the guy and would love to see him in the White House, quite honestly, still. I know we disagree on that, but I would love to see him as the next president of the United States. Now, I also think that ain't happening because it was somewhat erroneous strategy for him to challenge Donald Trump in the primary. He, quite honestly, should have waited because Trump
Right.
is just unbeatable. It's just the reality of the world that we live in. But no, I'm still, to this day, I love Ron DeSantis. So
Oh,
if it's up to me,
look,
he'd do it.
and look, I don't dislike Ron DeSantis. In fact, I from a policy perspective,
Oh,
I
yeah.
genuinely agree with him 95% of the time, probably. The problem is that how he does things matters, and he's creating more problems than he's solving in some cases. This whole
I agree.
elimination of property taxes, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and it needs to. And more than one person at the Capitol was talking about it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
what they because it's not possible to do it.
Mm-mm.
And even if you could do it, then all of a sudden what you're really doing is the tax increase. Because if you think that it's just going to be a swapping of the income from the property tax to a direct thing with maybe sales tax or something else, you got to get that money from somewhere. First off, the money that he's eliminating goes to the counties. It doesn't go to the state.
Right.
So he's kind of like penalty free doing it with his budget. So A, strike one, and B, you know, the counties have got to have money. And if there's a transition in the way the money is collected, there's no way for them to 100% guarantee that they're going to get the same amount of money back to the counties so they're not going to have to completely retool their budgets. So what's going to wind up happening is it's going to be a net tax increase instead of a tax shift. And
and we discussed this a little bit last week. I'm completely opposed. It might have been 2 weeks ago. I am completely opposed to the elimination of property taxes in Florida. Now, I don't like paying property taxes. I got my trim notice just this week. I think it came in the mail. Might have been late last week. I looked at it and like, oh my God, we're paying that much a month, So I was very surprised. I didn't think it was that high, to be honest with you. I should pay closer attention. So I don't like it, but I need to fund the county and the municipal government, and that's just the way it is. But as you kind of alluded to, Scott, but to say it very directly, it's real easy for lawmakers in Tallahassee to eliminate property taxes because the state government's not funded by property taxes.
It's not, exactly.
Hey, I get to vote for someone else to lose their funding. I mean, come on, it's a great campaign slogan if you succeed, but it's a terrible strategy. So I'm against that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality here is that they tried this back when Marco Rubio was the Speaker of the House back in, was it 06? And their idea back then was to raise the sales tax up to 18% sales tax, and that was 2006 numbers. We're in 2025 now. It's a lot of difference in pricing, and there's a lot of difference in needs and everything compared to back then. To raise it comparatively, it would be much higher than 18% sales tax. Now, their argument was tourism pays for it. That's true. Tourism pays for a lot of it. To a certain extent, but not to the degree that they're saying it is, and not to the level to where it's going to, be a regressive tax on almost everybody else or who's spending on it. I mean, if they can eliminate the sales tax on, guns and food and everything else, that'd be wonderful. But then again, if you eliminate the sales tax off everything, then what's the sales tax for? And so, I mean, you have to be able to replace that revenue somehow without raising taxes. And I don't see how they're going to do it. Just to follow up with what you are saying.
Think about this. All right. If they go and so the poor in Florida tend to rent. All right.
Correct.
I mean, it's just a fact of life. Poor people didn't generally qualify for a mortgage at any point in their life, so they don't have the overall majority of them don't have that. So what they're going to have to rely on, and frankly, even I guess the elderly in Florida that own their homes are going to get an immediate benefit, but the broadest chunk of people are going to have to wait for the generosity of their landlord to reduce their rent in a way that compensates for the property tax. Good luck.
Yeah, only if they mandate that. Now there is something that somebody did say that. Well, what you do is, I mean, if you actually prove that you've lowered your rent, then you can get a property tax cut. Then basically you have to prove it, though, that you've done that to your renters. And that would be, somebody said that's possible for them to do. I mean, anything's possible to put in statute. That's true. However, proving that and the labor intends in doing it, the mechanism.
Yeah.
I have no
idea. What's the
I
mechanism?
mean, what are you going to do? Anybody can pencil whip a lease and say they lower the rent. Anybody can say that.
Yeah. So, Scott, I don't know if you were asking that question rhetorically or if you really want an answer to it, but you said, what's the mechanism? Well, the mechanism, keep in mind, I'm opposed to the elimination of property taxes. So I'm not arguing this as a reason to eliminate property taxes. Okay. But the mechanism is the free market, right? I mean, if one guy's charging, and I'm just making up numbers here, okay? If you've got landlords charging $1,500 a month and 200 of that's because of property taxes, well, sure, they'll probably pocket that 200 initially. But if in a situation where they're in need of renters, well, guess what? They're going to lower it to 1,300 to be competitive in the market, and then everyone else is going to be forced to follow. So, what would
Well, if
force it?
that happens, that'd be
The
great.
market.
You are correct. You are absolutely correct. But how many years, how many leases will they have to go through before the majority of them get there? Some of them will do it immediately. I grant you.
Well, I
But
don't
a
see anybody
lot
doing
of
it immediately. I see them doing it at renewal time if they if the market is such that they need to lower it. If someone's willing to
Yeah,
same amount of money, well, then obviously you charge the same amount of money. But if the guy across the street needs a renter and he's willing to lower the price, well, guess what? You want to keep your tenant or get a new one,
yeah.
you've got to match that, maybe not dollar for dollar, but you better be
I
getting
agree.
close.
I agree with you that it will happen. The problem is the time between when
Exactly.
when the new sales tax is instituted and the rent is lowered, because there's gonna be a lot of overlap, and desperately poor people don't have the money to cover that overlap.
Right.
There
I
will be
mean,
overlap, no question.
like where I live here in Palm Coast, our rent is actually, where rent is always rising. Here, rent is actually dropping because we have more vacancies than we have people looking for rentals and everything, and so it's a more of a inventory issue here. We have too many houses for rent out there. But if they were to lower the property taxes like that, I'm sure that in a competitive market, like you said, the free market would dictate them having to lower it. But in order to do that, they're going to have to advertise, hey, or market the whole process that, hey, we're lowering rent because they lowered the taxes. The whole greed factor plays in here. Then the whole factor here that people are actually caring about the renters, which a lot of landlords don't, but a lot of landlords do. So it's going to be a hit or miss.
Yeah, and let me bring up one other variable because I'm beginning to think this whole conversation might be completely pointless because I think there's right now 10 different proposals out there. And if I remember them correctly, they only apply to homesteaded properties. Rental property wouldn't be homesteaded, so it might not even matter.
What do you mean? Okay, well,
Yeah,
I have not read every word of the 10 proposals, but I
right.
scanned the 10 proposals and looked at the highlights. And it's my recollection, it's been a few weeks since I've read it, but my recollection is the property tax elimination would only apply to homesteaded properties. And if you are
which
renting,
makes it the worst case scenario.
yeah, so if
Yeah,
you're
and
renting a house, it can't be homesteaded, which means your property taxes would not be eliminated. So this might just
Which
be an academic discussion anyway.
Well, right. But the thing is if they
more
if
reason
they
to be
limit the
against it.
property tax for homesteaded properties and then compensate for that by raising the sales tax, then that means that everyone is going to pay, but not everyone's going to get a savings.
Hmm.
Right.
That's true. Well, it's a terrible idea, and the people pushing it are only doing it because they want something to brag about at election time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the reason the rents are going down with where Greg is going is because they've successfully changed it from the Tren de Aragua to the Tren de Estados Unidos and back to Aragua. By the way,
I
do
know
you
what
know
any of that means.
Tren de Aragua is the name of the Venezuelan gang, and the Tren
Oh,
de
okay.
Estados Unidos, it is the train from the United States. Tren de Aragua means a train from Aragua, which I don't know why we're going this deep, but the that name came because they were building a train literally from Caracas to a province called Aragua, and then when the company ran out of money, the union that was working on the railroad decided to switch over to kidnapping and extortion because they didn't have any other way for money, and that was the birth of Tren de Aragua.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
But this is
Scott, if you really want to get low rent, just elect a Democrat socialist mayor, they freeze the rent.
Yeah, exactly.
Problems solved. Get city-run grocery stores. Government selling us our groceries, so
well,
the
Free
evil
buses and subways.
yeah.
well, we got Dimmings. He's running for governor now from Orlando. He's probably going to be jumping in the governor's race, and he's about the closest thing to Mamdani that we're going to have here running in Florida. So we'll see if the blue wave happens in the.
Yeah.
I don't see it happening.
No, did you? Oh, did you see that bit about Act Blue? Basically, having the executives at Act Blue were apparently, according to this report, the executives at Act Blue were So they would buy a piece of property privately. All right, so it didn't go through like a bank, and then they'd
Right.
have a title company close the deal, and then within minutes of the deal getting closed, they'd get this, like, of a $200,000 house, they'd get a $200 million wire. And then they're asking, where's that money going? Well, where's that money going? That money is their war chest, for their campaign war chest. They're giving money to everybody that's blue.
Right. And so
But
they're
where's
all
it coming from? If there's a $200,000 house, where do they come up with a
It's money
1% note?
laundering, Mike.
I know,
they're
but that's a
laundering it
big
all.
percentage. That's 10 times. I mean, it's one
Right.
thing to money launder 20%. It's a whole
Yeah, but
nother
none of
to
that,
do
none,
10
none of that
times
gets
the
recorded.
value.
None of that gets recorded because there's not a bank involved.
And also, all the donations are under $50.
Well, that's the bigger problem. Exactly. Yeah.
And so they figured out how the entire phone book system of the fundraising. And so nothing is ever reported. And so it all just runs through that same address.
Yeah, it's like the 90-year-old grandmother who doesn't remember donating 10 times to Act Blue.
Oh, yeah. Or like whenever you and I were looking at Matt Gates' contributions,
Oh
and we
my
found
God.
we found several people, and we actually took this to the feds, and nothing ever happened. But we found several donations here that were not real, of dead people who have been dead for over 10 years that donated to Matt Gates and were refunded to Matt Gates actually refunded them back. But
Mhm.
they were not alive and they never existed. And
Well, you remember the ones that were dead didn't have a contribution; they only had a refund.
well, that's right. Yeah, there are a lot of refunds of people who never donated.
Uh huh.
And it's not just Gates. I mean, that's the one we're looking at. But if you go through and look at a lot of the congressional reports, you see a lot of refunds of people who didn't exist because it went right back into the candidate's or the politician's pocket instead of to that person.
No,
Maybe.
no, that never happens.
Hmm. Could.
Mm.
You know, we had one sheriff who bought a houseboat with his campaign money in Northwest Florida.
Remember that.
But we won't mention his name.
I'm
Ones
not
you're
going to mention
talking
any
about.
names, although I saw him at the hospital the other day, a couple of months ago. He wasn't
He's
looking
doing pretty
good.
good. He's not
I'm,
anymore.
well, I'm glad if he is doing well. I'm glad to hear it. But when I saw him, he wasn't looking so good. So I don't
Right.
know. Hopefully he
Well,
recovered. I don't know.
a lot of the sheriffs that you and I used to work with are in their 70s and 80s now.
Yeah.
Have all been retired and put out to pasture more or less professionally.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that happens. And it's not a new thing in the campaign world either. I mean, these guys have been picking up. I mean, I saw another fundraiser today about the different races here in Florida, and they're not shocked at all to hear about people just walking around picking up cash and not reporting any of it. I think the money that's actually reported is probably, we're estimating probably 15 or 20% of what they actually raise is
Mhm.
actually reported. Probably 85% of it's put in their cash or into their new car or into their kids' college fund or something like that.
Well, you realize that until someone demands that they show them the check, that just because these people say that they refunded this money, if you got 30 refunds of $1,000 each, but you never show the refund check, like show the actual like canceled refund check, then
Right.
you could write that check to anybody. And
Yeah.
no one's going to be the wiser because that money was actually deducted from your campaign fund.
Yeah. And, who's to ask, really? I mean, there's no enforcement policy at all. I mean, there's
Yeah.
really no enforcement.
No. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to. In fact, we're gonna have him on the show tomorrow night. I'm doing a show with a guy named Mark Glazer. He actually has worked on getting several people prosecuted in Alachua County, which actually is great that the judges are actually enforcing it over there. But to
Mhm.
his point, is just very few people, and it's too little, too late on a lot of different levels because the election is already over. Yeah, these people were, basically faking ballots and falsifying votes and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
it happens on a regular basis throughout Florida here, and it's all the way from ballot, and really it doesn't have to do with both parties are doing it, and so whenever you have the state attorney being a partisan person, he's not going to go after his party, and he really doesn't want to have to go after the other party either, because he doesn't want to rock the boat too much. And most of it's pretty much controlled by cronies and developers, and that's it.
Or it's because he hired the same consultants that those guys used, and he's afraid that they may have done something he
Yeah,
doesn't know about.
yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, there's a lot of fear out there with all this.
Yeah, just because you don't know that your team violated the law doesn't mean you're not liable for them violating the law.
Right. Exactly. The law is broken, and it still needs to be fixed and not broken, and that's a hard thing in campaigns right now.
I seem to recall that when you sign those dang Form 6s and other things, or your Treasury reports, that you are taking responsibility for the accuracy of it, regardless of who prepared it.
You would think the Form 6s were enforceable, but
Form
obviously
6s,
they're not.
Form 6s are a little bit of a joke, but the campaign finance reports are, and it's a long little, like, I swear it's a 150 word or 200 word statement disclaimer that you are taking responsibility for this thing, and you're saying, and it says basically, I don't care how you made the circumstance behind you making a mistake, you
Right.
are liable. Now, sometimes they're more aggressive than others, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. But I mean, and so with the election coming up here for 2026, I guess that election starts today now, and pretty much the government shutdown is still happening. How do you think the Republicans are going to be able to maximize the government shutdown for the election purposes over the next 2 years?
I don't know. They're not being very. I
Smart.
don't know. They're not being very smart about it. I was trying to think of a more diplomatic word than that,
There's
but
no
that's
diplomatic way.
yeah, that it boils down
Republicans
to
are not
that.
going. The Republicans will not be able to exploit the government shutdown for 26 any more than they were able to exploit the government shutdown yesterday. The
Right.
voters are not going to remember much. They are going to be reminded by the Democrats and the fake media that it was the Republican shutdown. In fact, I was watching, and again, blame me for watching PBS, but I was watching PBS just this evening,
I couldn't
and
do it.
Hakeem
I
Jeffries was
tried
on
it.
talking about the Republican shutdown, right? And of course, the leftist moderator from PBS just let him go on and didn't challenge him and just let him spew his partisan nonsense without correcting any of the lies. It's one of the many ways
Really.
that NPR and PBS both are extreme left leaning without having to take direct responsibility for. I didn't say that. Well, fine, you didn't, but you invited on guests who said it, and they didn't
Right.
correct. So there's a pattern there, and it's a provable pattern. But the reality is that the typical voter has a very short memory. They're not going to remember who to blame, but they're going to be reminded by the Democrats and their allies in the media that it was the Republicans' fault, and they will attempt to exploit it. But in the hierarchy of needs, the government shutdown a year from now will be a distant memory. What people are going to
Right.
care about is prices and is this nation at peace? It's pocketbook issues. We all know that. Now, if you were a
Exactly.
state who didn't get your government paycheck for, by now 36 days and it's going to go on a little longer, well, you are eventually going to get it. So I don't think long term you got anything to complain about, which, as we've discussed before, the biggest problem with the shutdown is that we pay people not to work, right? And it's one thing to delay you.
Right.
It's another thing to say you don't have to come in to work at all. We're still going to pay you. That's, I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but that's the biggest problem. But people aren't going to remember. It's not going to be an issue. The top
Right.
10 issues in 2026 won't even make the list.
Well, what I am surprised is that yesterday's election in Georgia, because Georgia is a very red state, I would think, and
Well, they got two
how it
senators
went
in the
blue
United
for
States Senate.
two statewide elections went blue.
Well, Georgia's got 2 Democrat senators in the United States Senate, so it's not a dark red state.
Well, that was back then. They've been there for a while.
2 years.
Well, also has been there 4 years, I thought.
Oh, right, but the most recent one, 2 years.
Oh, 2 years, really?
6-year term.
Yeah, well, I know Ossoff's up for re-election right now in 26. Ossoff is. So he's there, I guess, in 20,
That sounds
maybe.
right. Mm-hmm.
And so either way, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm not a big, Marjorie fan or anything, but I do agree with her that it is kind of irritating that in a red state like Georgia is supposed to be turning more red, that they would have two Democrats elected statewide for the Public Service Commission, I think, and another seat. I don't know which the other election was, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I think the biggest issue is not the Democrats turning out, but the lack of Republicans that are turning out, and they've got to quit being complacent and really step it up here for this next cycle.
The Democrats are real good at getting out the vote on election day, and the Republicans, unfortunately, are not. Now, a lot of that does have to do with absentee ballots. The Democrats are able to
Yeah,
exploit, and I use that word for a reason, exploit the absentee ballot process. And the Republicans, for the most part, shy away from using absentee ballots and
exactly.
encouraging the Republican supporters to vote via absentee
Yeah, because
because they
if you look at New
they
Jersey,
understand how easily fraudulent it can be. But the
yeah, New
reality is,
Jersey,
those are the
they can
rules of
still
the game.
vote.
Rules of the
Yeah,
game. You need to play by them.
right. In New Jersey, they can still vote until next Monday, absentee. And I mean,
So if they figure
a
out they
whole
need a few
6
more votes,
days.
if they figure out they need a few more votes, they can just go recruit some people that haven't voted yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
New
now they
Jersey has some
don't.
very weird rules.
Yeah, they don't because the margin was 13 points. So and the Democrat won anyway. Okay, in New Jersey, but yeah,
But
that's
if they needed
ridiculous.
to,
If they
Yeah,
needed to, they got it.
Mhm.
and they'll probably still stack it up. She'll probably end up winning by 17 or 18 points at the end of the day. With all them being, I mean, it's just weird. I mean, because as long as it's postmarked, I guess they said they're giving it that many days to get to the elections office.
Oh, don't
So
worry, there's no problem postmarking these things. I'm sure they come to the post office with a postmark.
that's
Probably
probably
so.
true. But yeah, it's it was quite the day of the election yesterday, and it's I saw Trump's speech, or not speech, but interview with 60 Minutes. Did y'all see that yet?
Mm-mm.
With
I
Noah?
nope.
It was funny.
I did
She
hear
get
they
on.
edited out some rant, but I never
They
saw what
did.
the rant was about. What they edit out?
I don't remember exactly what the rant was about. I know he was ranting pretty hard about the Venezuela issue and about the war on drugs and about keeping everybody out. And they did not like that part. That was one of the more controversial parts.
Well, only by with Trump saying it would a rant be a bad thing, because anytime that one of their favorite lefties say things, they're not ranting, they're just full of truth that they have to get out.
I mean, The
Yeah,
View.
if 60 Minutes did exclude part of that interview and it was a Trump rant, they no doubt excluded it because Trump was making sense and it would have been motivational to the American people to hear the truth. So, can't have
Right.
that.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, I mean, I like how he called the Ukraine war a stupid war that he inherited. And he said this thing should have been over a long time before he ever got to in office. And the fact that it's not is embarrassing.
I agree with that. I agree with every word of that, every sentiment of that.
Yep. Well, you guys got anything else to add on tonight?
I don't know. I mean that covers the really the big things for the news week so far.
Yeah, it's government. Any bets on the government opening back up by next Wednesday? You think?
Well,
By
Oh
I'll
yeah,
go first. I'll go first because last week I got to go last, and therefore I invoked Price is Right rules and easily won. So I will say if your over and under is a week from tonight, so this would be Wednesday. Today's
over
the 5th.
under.
So Wednesday the 12th, I'll say we'll be open by Wednesday the 12th. Next time we talk, they'll be open.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think it has 3 or 4 days, and then because I'm back to my original thesis. Without the little unconsidered election, I think that it's they're tapering down. They're running out of excuses, and there's no way they can keep their fundraising going because
Right.
number one, the elections artificially pump up the public sentiment, which also pumps up the fundraising. Without all that money being poured out into the market, then it's just going to start going downhill. And
You think fundraising is going to stop?
no, I don't think that the efforts are going to stop. I think that the diminishing returns are going to start rearing their ugly heads.
Yeah. I think, to bring a sports analogy in, I think we're 2 head coach firings away from it being over. because right now the Southeastern Conference and the ACC are on a football coach firing spree. I guess they're going to be firing Dabo Sweeney next, and so I think probably whenever they get rid of the Alabama coach, it's probably when it's going to be over. Or the Florida State coach, Mike Norvell.
Yeah, they can't afford to let him go. And
Hey,
I simply
is paying $65 million to get rid of Dabo. They paid $82 million to get rid of Brian Kelly. I mean, they paid. I mean, what's the guy? Freeze. He was only 2 years into a 6-year contract, and they bought. I mean, wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
did you
they're
hear
all
what Governor
walking away with
Landry said about
cash.
firing the LSU coach?
Yeah, taxpayers are having to pay for it.
Yeah, and he basically said that he's going to pick the next one. He's not going to leave it up to the AD.
Yeah, I think it's weird in Louisiana the taxpayers had to pay for that. That's weird.
Yeah, that is crazy. So you asked if there's anything we want to wrap it up with. I just want to wrap it up with this, okay? And this is specifically for the voters in New York, okay? All of whom I'm sure listen to this podcast, but go read Atlas Shrugged. It used to be in the nonfiction section, but after the election of Mandami, it's going to be in the nonfiction. Did I say that?
You had it backwards. You had it backwards. I know what you're saying.
Let me correct that then. It used to be in the fiction section. That's what I meant to say. Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged used to be in the fiction section. That's what I meant to say. It now can be found in the nonfiction section because it's about to come true.
Well, actually, we have a lot of listeners that live in New York. So real quick, we haven't really talked about the mayor race, to a real deep degree. How much freedom do you think that he's going to give?
To who?
I mean, he said everything's going to be free.
Oh, okay.
That's not freedom.
I thought he's going to give freedom to the criminals. He's going to give freedom to the criminals. He's going to have rent frozen. Now, of course, he can't do that on his own, but his rent control board can. But even they have to justify it, and they're going to justify it. I mean, it's a predetermined outcome. They just got to.
But the governor says she's not going to raise the taxes to pay for all his projects.
Well, that's true. The governor would have to sign off on it. New York has some really strange laws, and the mayor of New York has more power than most mayors in the country. And not just because of the size of the city. I mean, by
the super mayor,
the way it's structured, the way the government's structured, the mayor of New York has a tremendous amount of power. He's not just implementing city council policy. He's able to appoint thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. I don't know. Can't be hundreds. Must be tens of thousands of people to various boards who can carry out his policies. So it's a very powerful position in this country. And with the New York voters electing a Democratic socialist as they have, Atlas Shrugged will be found in the nonfiction section now because it's coming.
You have to understand that Democrats don't have to actually accomplish anything because they can always blame the man. They can blame Donald Trump in this case for foiling their good efforts.
Now, do y'all watch the concession speech for Cuomo? It's actually a pretty good speech. Actually, I'm not a really big Cuomo fan.
I don't care.
But I think he's running for something else.
I'm sure he is. They always are.
Well, if New York City fails, it will not be because of Mandami's socialism. It will be because it needs to be larger than just New York City.
Exactly.
You need nationwide socialism or it won't work.
Right.
That will be the battle cry.
Yeah, well, 4 years from now, when New York looks like Detroit, I don't think that's going to be a very positive selling point.
Oh, yeah, I did have one thing I totally forgot to ask you guys about. Everybody keeps on talking about the Republican healthcare plan. What do y'all think it should be?
I think the Republican healthcare plan should be to get out of healthcare.
Bingo.
Exactly.
I think you return it back to the states and defederalize it, and let the states handle it like they handle everything else.
You remember that part of what made Obamacare skyrocket the costs of insurance was the fact that they included things like birth control for men. And I don't mean like condoms. I mean like, I mean like oral birth control.
Right. It's kind of like what Kennedy was saying. Senator Kennedy was all the different parts of the bill that the Democrats want to put back in. They want to put back in all these the condoms for lesbians in Korea and and all
Well,
these.
I don't get that. That's
It's
not an
just
Obamacare thing. What I'm saying is that the original Obamacare, it bumped all this stuff because they allowed the insurers to unify the model, so they've just got one uniform model, and everyone
right,
has to be covered for everything, which allows them to go back to an actuary table and say, okay, well, if we're going to do this coverage for this age of person, then we charge this, and that's what they've done, and that's why the prices shot up. And then during COVID, they gave all these grants to try to keep everything from skyrocketing too much due to COVID, and instead the insurance company said, "Oh, you're going to give everyone an additional $2,000 available to them." Well, what coincidence! We have a desperate need to raise our premiums by $2,000.
right.
So good timing. Good timing.
Well, what would it do? I mean, for the budget, if we got all the illegals off of the Medicaid and all the
That has
healthcare? I
nothing to
mean,
do with it. That has nothing to do with Obamacare.
well, I know
Yeah,
I'm talking about the
that's
healthcare
Medicaid.
system.
That's going to be different than the the Affordable Care Act. So Scott's right on that one. But should we absolutely defund healthcare for illegals? Well, of course we should.
Well,
And
snap.
And the problem is California has played a little shell game because the law does presently say that you can't send this money for illegals. It's just not allowed. But what California has done is cook the books and said, all right, well, fine, we're not going to do that, but we're going to fund it with state money. And then they've kind of moved money around to make it look like it's not federal money that's paying for it, even though it ultimately is. This money is fungible. So California is the biggest offender of that. And the healthcare costs of California have skyrocketed. And state law actually says, they openly admit, yes, we're funding healthcare for illegals, but they claim they're using state money to do it. Well,
Right.
it's a shell game
Yeah.
because they're
Right.
cooking the books and they're really using federal money to do it.
Right.
Now,
It's just like SNAP. Before
yeah.
Biden, they were spending $4.5 billion on SNAP, and now they're spending $11 billion on SNAP.
Why?
I don't know,
I
Greg.
don't
Who do you think
know.
got all that extra money?
Do you think it might have been the border jumpers?
Say it ain't so, Jeff.
No. Anyway, you guys, please continue to subscribe to our channel. We are now over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is pretty cool. And we are on all the different platforms that you like to follow any of your podcasts on. We're on pretty much every platform there is out there, except for I think Reddit, where Reddit still will not let us on there yet for some reason. I don't know why, but we're having issues with Reddit. Well, we're on there, but then they keep on making it to where I can't watch the video. So who knows? They're leftists.
Who knows?
But yeah, stay tuned, and we'll be back next week, and or Friday later in the week here with some more wonderful episodes here, and just stay tuned. You guys have a wonderful evening.
All right. Good night.
Good night, guys.